And with us now is Professor Charles Lewis, Executive Editor of the Investigative Reporting Workshop, the American University School of Communication, Professor of Journalism, and author of 5 books. InvestigateReportingWorkshop.org is the website. Professor Lewis, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me.
So you've done you and the folks in your workshop have done some pretty remarkable work on what the Koch brothers are up to with regard to, in particular, buying off higher education. Can you, what and organizing nonprofits? What's the situation? Where are we at? What have they been doing, and how did it get here?
Well, as you know, Koch Industries is one of the largest privately held companies in the world. They have been politically active in the traditional ways, campaign contributions and other things, for many, many years. Increasingly over the last basically almost 20 years, and I've actually tracked them for several years, they have gotten deeper and deeper into other types of influence, not just political influence, say, with Congress. And so what we showed in what we called the Koch Club is we looked at their political contributions, their lobbying contributions, or lobbying expenditures, rather. We looked at their money going to universities, and we looked at their money to 89 public policy type nonprofits that are lobbying on and talking publicly and educating the public about things that their own companies, commercial lobbyists, are also lobbying about. All of these things involve lots of money, of course, about $134 million in just a 5-year period, or the last 5 years that you could track. And I should say this is not illegal. This is entirely legal in the United States. This is philanthropy, self-interest of a company, the 5th and 6th or something like that, wealthiest people on planet Earth, exerting their influence, a 160,000 employee, $115 billion company. And what makes Koch unusual is I'm not aware of another U.S.-based corporation that goes to these lengths and is this across the board thorough in putting forward their views and their policies and their ideologies. But the ideologies line up very nicely with the agenda of the company, as a matter of fact.
Can you give me an example of that, sir?
Well, we showed that climate change legislation was blocked completely in the House of Representatives in 2011. And actually, even more remarkably, the House voted to chop the Environmental Protection Agency overall budget by 27%, which is one of the biggest cuts ever in the history of that agency. And about more than 100 members of the House, a good number of them Tea Party Republicans, all voted not to have a single penny spent on anything relating to climate change or any regulation of the environment. And what happened is they essentially blocked it in the House. The Senate, on the overall EPA budget, it ended up being a total cut of 16% that year. But it also means that all these people signed pledges, very similar to the Grover Norquist no tax pledge, that they would not in any way support this. And it means that climate change will not come through the Congress anytime soon because of this. So the influence, and that, of course, they are in oil and gas and they're into many things, the Koch Industries, but they're originally known for, most importantly, for oil and gas. And so, of course, they're not in any way interested in climate change. They think that, they're against anything relating to regulation in that area. That plays directly. And so their commercial lobbyists were talking about this quietly over lunches and dinners and schmoozing Capitol Hill, and their nonprofits were also testifying during the exact same period of time, 49 or something like that, 49 times on this issue. So they were doing the public thing, the private schmooze thing, and the political contribution thing. I should mention 75 to 80% of the members of Congress who were voting their way on that whole climate change thing all got contributions from Charles or David Koch. So they flooded the zone of potential influence.
Wow. And they did this both through think tanks and universities?
Yeah, most now some of the think tanks, some of the nonprofit policy groups, also known sometimes as think tanks, some of them are at universities. There's no university they have supported more in the United States by far than George Mason University. There are two think tanks, Institute for Human Studies and the Mercatus Center, and those two plus George Mason University itself together received about 29 or $30 million, just them alone, and that over is far more than any of the other universities combined. There are 221 universities in 5 years that have gotten money from them, and much of the money is with a kind of an agenda, sort of an ideological agenda about free enterprise and no regulation and all of these kinds of things.
So we'll give money to your college if you'll teach our ideology?
Yeah, pretty much. You and they'll name the lecture. They require in some cases the lectures have to be named after the Koch lectures on the various subjects. So yes, there's a very heavy hand, and there's been some controversies in some universities in the country about it, where there's been pushback from the faculty or from the students or from the public. So But I actually had no idea that they were supporting that many universities, and they were surprising universities, not just small, small. I guess you'd say colleges really that might be sort of libertarian leaning, or in parts of the country where they have more support. They were actually urban centers that were not exactly remotely predictable. Mm-hmm. So they are spreading the word in ways that I don't think any of us realize.
Wow. And where do you see this going? We're talking with Professor Charles Lewis, who is the executive editor of the Investigative Reporting Workshop, the American University School of Communication, professor of journalism, author of 5 books, investigatereportingworkshop.org, about this report that he wrote along with 3 others, titled The Koch Club. And Koch is spelled, the old mayor of New York used to pronounce it Koch, K-O-C-H.
Right.
And in fact, I'm guessing that this is simply the way their family has always named their name, although I've had callers call in and say, no, they call themselves Koch so that people won't be able to easily find them on the internet. People type in C-L-K-E. But in any case, the Koch brothers, the Koch brothers, whatever you want to call them, where, in the minute we have left, where do you see them going? Are they ramping up their activities, or are they starting to scale back?
No, they're ramping up. We have one of the articles in this package of things we've written with maps and all kinds of graphics. We show that in 1996 they were active in 27 congressional races. This time they're giving to over 100 races in the country. So that's just the political part. You add the universities and the nonprofits. They're far. This is the 2012 and the last few years have been the biggest imprint they've made on American politics, and including academia and these other places. So they are getting more aggressive as they also become more wealthy.
Very quickly, is there anything on the left to compare to this?
No. The short answer is no. Well, there are a lot of groups out there saying a lot of things, but on issues like the environment or any other major issue, you have a lot of public interest groups and individual donors who lean towards say the Democratic Party, but there's no evidence they're benefiting from their own advocacy. It's more political and ideology.
Great. Professor Charles Lewis, thank you for being with us, sir.
Sure. Thank you.
Great speaking with you.